Thank you, Venerable,
Welcome.
for accepting the invitation.
Yes.
I'm very happy always to meet a human being who is capable of this kind of presence, or and we are here within the frames of a educational program.
Yes.
About why and what it's the meaning of life, the ways, the values, the incertitudes, the doubts, the suffering, the highest, the core values of our being, and not in a theoretical way, but we have the proof that the theory is in fact secondary to the being and to live and to experience. So if you agree, Venerable, if I will be, I don't know, a teenager, and I will kindly ask you, please, Venerable, tell me where to go. Where to go? I see the world, I see the business world,
yes,
the financial world, I see the universities, and I don't know what to do, because what would be your first answer? Regarding, of course, your life itself, and your way in which you choose.
I'm sure it's understandable, let's say, a person being very, very young, and also seeing, as you mentioned, there is also a lot of, in our world, particularly nowadays, also quite a lot of problems, in relation,
Yes.
in many fields, in relation to environment, in relation to, let's say, in relation to education, in relation to, in the society also, and there's many things, quite variegated, but there's a lot of things that one may very easily have the idea there's no perspective, there's not a kind of perspective for oneself, or one can get also very easily kind of depressed, especially when one is looking about, I would say, about this violence also, which is manifesting more and more in different forms as conflicts, but also on, let's say, on the level of language also,
Yes.
and sure, finally also the attitudes. That one is kind of, especially for young, I can imagine very well that you can be very desperate and depressed about. Now, from the point of, let's say, I just remember when Gonzo Rinpoche, he says, sure, we should be aware we are living in a degenerated time, which is characterized by certain, what we call it 5 degenerations. It's very typical. That means when one understands, or as a human being, as a young human being, that one is in the midst of that actually, and have a good understanding. On one side, I remember when Rinpoche said this, it's very degenerated, but still it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Still there's many things said of it, but there's also the other aspect. Because these degenerations, I'm not sure how much time they should be described, also mentioned what they are, or
Yes, maybe
briefly.
I'm
I'm not sure if I remember all of them,
Yeah.
but we will see if I know, if I remember at least. We say there is Natu, Tawa, Nirmo, Semjen, yes, there's 5, it's called 5 degenerations. It refers to the time, is it time too, and Tawa, the view, and Hu, Tawa, Nyurmong means delusions. Delusions, and then it says also Semjen means beings, and Tse means the lifespan. Now this is, first it says The tu means just time in Tibetan. It refers to what I remember, but you have to be very careful. It refers a degenerated time is characterized as a time where there's a frequent occurrence of conflicts, wars, disasters. This is typically, although it's called, we say also with the period where we are now, it's also Kali Yuga, that means time of conflicts. And it's quite obvious. That conflicts,
yes.
And even it's how they are carried out also in very cruel and gross manners, it's not how they, this is one characteristic too. Tawa means view. A degenerated time is also characterized that a lot of completely distorted and wrong and perverted views are flourishing. Views which are very narrow, very kind of discriminating others, putting them down and excluding and to despise others, which doesn't fit in that view and so on, which gives also a lot of sufferings to others. We see in that world, it's quite obvious that there is a lot of views which contribute to the sufferings of beings. There's already enough problems people have, but then to these completely wrong views and beliefs, it augments somehow the sufferings enormously. Just briefly, too.
Yes, yes.
Sanyamong means delusions. It refers to delusions also exist on different levels. They can be very subtle, and what we call them, but they can also manifest very gross forms, manifest very violently. And this is also typical in a degenerated time that the delusions manifest very violently. Extreme strong attachment, people have, strong greed, or strong anger, or extreme pride, but really very, very kind of powerful, This is also a typical sign of a degenerated time.
Yes.
And then it says also, it says about beings, sentient beings, this also refers to this incapacity of people losing more and more the capacity of having empathy, trying to act in a society or in the collective, being very constructive, to each other, having respect. These things get more and more lost. This mutual respect and cherishing, and because people are very, very strongly driven by the egoism, very strongly. But also, I have also heard this about the beings. Also means the capacity of the beings of understanding also degenerates more and more. It's also said at the time of Buddha, the beings, due to the force of their, what we call merit, its kind of positive potentialities, they had really capacity of easily understanding things, which, for example, have been explained, which have been, which have been shown in the philosophy. They had a good understanding. They didn't need a lot of further explanations and commentaries and this and that. But by the time the capacity of beings degenerates more and more, therefore they cannot understand, they misinterpret many passages also. Therefore they need commentaries, but even often commentaries to the commentaries, because they're so dull, they become more and more. There is even some Western philosophers say somehow when our society continues in such a manner, we really become more and more kind of stupid or dull. Sure, we should not generalize, but there's risks there. And finally, as it says about the last one, lifespan, it says in Buddhism it's very difficult for us for many maybe to grasp. There is, it's not fixed how old, let's say, humans can become. They can become extremely old, certain periods. This is very much depending on what we call on the merit. Merit. Also recently, Venerable Nicola explained me from the Sanskrit term. It's one of the meanings is that which nourishes. It's a kind of, we call it positive potentials or potentiality. And when the merits are lacking, when it is then, or there's a lack of merits, then beings actually they don't get very old. Even it's one of the causes what is called it's that which causes what we call untimely death. There are many people actually, they would have the capacity to live longer, but they cannot live the complete lifespan because they have lack of merit.
So the merit, it's one of the core
Core is a kind, yes, is a kind of positive potentiality. It can be compared. Let's say, I'll give you an example. It's a kind of, let's say, when you have a sportsman, even he can be very slim, he has not any kind of really kind of very well built muscles, but what he can have is what we call endurance. And the endurance gives him the possibility to run very long distances. But endurance itself, when you see, it's not something which can be seen, but it's something. It's a kind of, we call it nuba, like a power or something which nourishes. Now the person is very slim, but he can run and run and run, as we know this through the marathon. What nourishes them is this endurance, this which they have. It's also said, what we say, this positive potentiality comes into existence through doing virtuous or wholesome deeds. By that, we say it's kind of accumulated in the subtle stream of consciousness, and that gives you, it's something which nourishes you. This is nourishing factor, which is very important. It's a force, a force. And often you can see, I give you a simple example, maybe it's very vaguely, when you get really upset and very angry. What people always experience after they had been very angry, they feel completely exhausted. And we say through anger, this merit gets extremely damaged. Actually, it gets kind of destroyed even. And therefore, people say, they share it in common. They say, when I was so upset, and after I feel completely exhausted. It's something regarded very, very important, but which comes into existence only through having really a wholesome lifestyle, through really being very, so do positive things, constructive, like serving others, being kind to them, helping them. Now I would say, this young person who's a kind of desperate what to do, on one side you see there's a lot of troubles in this world, but on the other side you can also say, the person, whoever it is, a young girl or young boy, they're extremely fortunate, but still they're human beings. Human beings, and they have the possibility, let's say, they have access to knowledge, and particularly if they have, this is also what we say karmically, if they have access, let's say, to the Buddhist philosophy, sure, this is an extremely fortunate being, because there's many things the person can learn, can apply into practice. Despite the fact that the world, there's a lot of cruelties and many things going wrong, but you can improve your mind, and also you can learn many, many things and cultivate on the basic of these teachings. But I would also say here, it's not limited only to Buddhist teachings. There are many, many spiritual traditions in this world, and according to the background of the person and the, inclinations and needs, the different religious traditions and philosophy can serve as a means in order what should be the main purpose of any kind actually of philosophy or religious system, in order to improve these inner mental qualities like compassion, love, wisdom, cherishing others, being generous, being being a friend to others, you know. This, and when you see that perspective, that the person is open to it, there's still great chance. Actually. There's no need to be being actually depressed. And based then on having a mental health, let's say, you really take care on your mind. Sure, then there's many possibilities for this young person, or by the time then, based on that, why not then to study certain things? Maybe it will manifest later. Maybe the person is interested in mathematics, or in music, or in healing science, or in becomes a linguistic. But it's based on some inner values. This is so important. This is that which will nourish the person. Regardless what the person now studies, or where the person is. This is so important. And when you as a professor, or you have these disciples, can assist as a contributing condition, helping those young people, it's great. We appreciate it a lot. You know? It's really so important.
So the inner values, and I was thinking about the technology of coming back to the source, because the word that you mentioned, this greedy word, it's a word based on outer reality. So the inner reality is secondary. And in education, this is a great problem. This year you are saying this with your words just now, that education of inner values, it's the core of the future and of a better world.
Sure, because I think this is very key actually. How you say?
But what's the technology? Why? Sorry that I interrupt you, but the technology means, so there are people which feel that their inner world, it's kind of hell, fire and hate, and if I ask them, what do you want to do with your life? He or she may respond, I only want to tolerate, to keep myself in a peace, in one piece, and being, but I cannot.
Sure.
I'm like I don't know, a wounded skin. You encounter a person like this, and how can you help them? Or I don't know, the Buddhist way of life.
Yes. Sure, there, as you said, you know, these people are very desperate, often very desperate, and also often also not knowing what really to do, and now is how to say. And one has to bring about a change. Let's say when one has the wish for peace or for a peaceful mind, you know, then it's very important to understand and help the person also to make understanding. Let's say when the person is very disturbed, let's say often also happens very depressed, very disturbed and having very wrong ideas, and even some have that thought of doing suicide and so on. This is really because they're really being so depressed and desperate, and confused. Now, first one, sure, there are many means in the teachings given in order to help such persons. One is, so it depends also how open the person is, you know, how much the person is ready to apply certain things.
Often they're also very closed.
That's the thing, you know. If they're completely closed, then it's quite difficult, you know. Sure, it's, I would say, but can also happen, you know. But I think as long as the person keeps that contact, let's say, with you, and has a communication, that's already that's great. It's great, you know. I think things get always problematic when there's not anymore any communication or
Yes.
connection. You know, when people disconnect completely and isolate themselves, then it gets a little bit problematic. It's the same in, let's say, also between nations also. You know, when there comes a point when those who are kind of leading a state or a nation are not, when this dialogue comes to an end, then there's always the risk that the next thing what will, we have a saying in German, it says, dass die Waffen sprechen, it means the next thing which will speak are the weapons. As long as there's a dialogue and one can negotiate, and it's already good, it's good, there are possibilities there. Now I would say, if a person is really so disturbed and very depressed, first person has to learn very fundamental, very simple things, you know, like, since you also talked before about breathing, I would just teach the person to breathe well, because the breathing is also key, this exhalation, inhalations, doing it really well, it settles the mind, it settles. You can see people who are very depressed and they become also very nervous, they cannot breathe somehow, they're stuck here, it's just here, it's just here, we have to learn, it settles the mind, to show that, one can show that, to reveal it to them. And further I would also then say, give very simple advices in relation. It's important that they don't neglect certain things which are very important, like eating well, you know, not neglecting going outside in nature. If there's possibility, even here in Bucharest you find there parks and there's always some, it's things which help. We see also when one is depressed, what is also helpful, you try to find a place which is a little bit higher, which is open.
Yes,
because the sign of depression is always to be very narrow and closed. You have to open, go in a place which is, we have a good view, which is vast. These things help.
We need space.
Space.
Inside.
And the external space can help to open
grow
something.
the
Exactly.
internal
These
space.
very simple things, you know. But they are very, very useful. And then sure, there can be also things one has to find out. Are there things which these young persons really like to do? It can be simple things. It can be like, then they should also do like playing, let's say, music, or doing some paintings, or go to a theater. Just can be, but they should not neglect. It's very important. And sure, it depends. According to Tibetan medicine, there's also certain medicines which are given which help against what we call these lung diseases. These are diseases in relation to the energies. When the energies are disturbed, especially what we call the life force sustaining wind or energy, when they are disturbed, then it manifests. People get they lose any kind of stability, you know, they get very irritable. One moment they can be even very happy, but then again extremely depressed, completely down, you know.
So
then they get problems with
the life force is disturbed.
It's disturbed, yes.
Energy
And it can be, yes, we call it life sustaining wind. It's wind, yes, wind or energy. They're different, they're very regarded, very important. One is at, we say, the heart center, this is life sustaining force, wind. Some are winds or energies are necessary that we can speak, some are necessary that we can digest, some winds are necessary that we can defecate and urinate. It's very hard to precisely described in Tibetan medicine, but especially when these certain winds, especially these at the heart center, this life-sustaining wind is disturbed, it creates a lot of mental problems. And also the great masters, like when Geshe-Rabten Rinpoche also says, and also when Unzer Rinpoche have heard, they say, I think this passage comes from, yes, they say a lot of people in the West who are in mental hospitals, these sicknesses, these mental sicknesses it's regarded from Tibetan medicine, these are kind of all problems with subtle energies, with the wind diseases actually. And they say this come into existence, it's a combination of being unhappy and having stress, you know. And this is kind of like a poison. People are pushed to do a lot of things, but they're completely being unhappy.
Yes.
If you're happy, it doesn't matter. Even if you have a lot of things to do, it doesn't matter. But if you're already so depressed and unhappy, and there's so a lot of things which should be done and are also expected to be done and performed, then it creates these disturbances. And therefore, I think there's great possibilities to help those persons. But you have to keep in contact. You have to keep in contact.
Yes.
It's very, very, very important.
I've heard the word space and the metaphor of space, and I was thinking spontaneously to ask Venerable if this notion of space and the reality of space.
One moment, just come to my mind.
Yeah,
Just to these young people. One has to find out, or they have to learn. One has to show them methods or means what makes them happy. Find that out. It can be even very simple things. It's very important.
Yes, to be happy.
To be happy. Having a really joyful mind. Joyful mind.
I've heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama answer about what is the nature of life, and he said happiness.
Yes, I've also heard something similar. Yes.
So
Now, this is very important. It just stresses the importance of having joy, you know, to have it as a basic attitude. Because, as said, just to conclude it, for us, just the simple fact of having human existence, with
it's a joy.
Yes, especially with these extraordinary capacities of the mental consciousness, you can be so. You can do so wonderful things with it, you know, and develop it. It's so positive. There's such a positive direction, and that knowing that one still is possessing that, and also knowing that there are means, and also knowing there are really embodiments of personalities like masters who are really kind of embodiment of these inner qualities, and things and that they're also ready to share if there is interest. That's already could be not better, you know. Because you will never find an environment which is really perfect, you know. One has to change this inner attitude, because often we have the idea by changing then, by that alone the problem will be solved, moving from another place, but I'm doubtful. Because if you go to other place, one's attitudes or let's say wrong habits that one has, or bad behaviors, they also carry it to the other place. It accompanies you. Therefore one tries to slowly, little by little, to change one's way of, especially one's behaviors, mental behavior.
Shall we go back to the metaphor of space?
Yeah, space, okay.
So without space, you feel in the prison.
Yeah, without space,
prison
it will be very difficult, you know, because there is, how do you say, now you can correct me, Nikolai, I think we have these 4 elements like earth, water, fire and wind, and then also there's an enumeration, is consciousness and space. But space is extremely important. Without space there is not any kind of possibility of movement or of is needed. But space refers to what I understood is just is a very abstract phenomenon, which is just the absence of, we say, how to translate that, it's a direct negation of obstructiveness and tangibility, you know. When that is not there,
Yes.
space doesn't obstruct, you know.
Space doesn't obstruct.
No, it doesn't obstruct. If it would obstruct, you could not put here your tripods with the camera or the table, you know.
So
It's a
fluidity. Space means
it's an absence of tangibility and obstructiveness. This is negated directly. This is space, you know. But it's not so easy, really, to. But very important, you know. Otherwise there would be no possibility of growing of things, of extension, or or many things, movements would be not possible. You could not build a house. Your body could not grow, in the womb of the mother. Nothing would be possible. Space is needed. It's indispensable. Space.
Venerable, it's also connected with the space, but the space of our lives. So
You mean the duration of life? Or?
also, and I was thinking about the fact that it has been a quarter of century since you were ordained monk, isn't it?
I'm
1994.
No, it's earlier.
Earlier.
One moment. Just let me know one moment. I'm now not checking this. I'm about. It's easy. I became monk when I was 30 years old, and now I'm getting 54 in October.
So 24.
24 years, yes.
24. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Old man already.
A wise man.
No, not at all.
Oh, just
Not at all. Not at all. I tell you, when you see really these masters like, or Venerable Gonzo Rinpoche, or Venerable Tenzin Rabgye Rinpoche, or this Venerable Geshe also, or this Venerable Geshe who resides in the monastery where Venerable Vlad and Venerable Nikolai is, Venerable Geshe Tsultrim and so on. Really, these are really wise personalities, and I would say also really embodiments of these qualities of wisdom and compassion. I myself am just a beginner, really beginner. And even among the beginners, there are those, I would say, there are really those who are good in scriptures, really studying well, but are also not belonging to that category. I feel always, I tell you just honestly, very direct, I feel there are different categories, let's say, according to the capacities of the monks. Some are really studying, they have a strong emphasis on the studies. Some are kind of all-rounder, they're studying but also working. Some are just more in the field of doing works and services for the monastery. And I feel always somebody like being in the kitchen, but not being the chief cook there, but just being someone in some corner and peeling potatoes, there. And then if I have to go to certain places, I feel like I am called by somebody says, oh, please come out of the kitchen and could you go there? But I feel more like somebody being from the kitchen staff and really lacking
from the kitchen.
any capacities of understanding.
So what I hear now, it's modesty. So a way.
No, it's a fact.
Yes, modesty. It's a fact.
No, the fact is that I have no knowledge. That's a fact. I have to improvise.
You have to improvise.
I have to improvise, and I'm very moved by your culture in Romania, by the people. This I can say. About that, I'm really confident.
We are used to present ourselves in nice colors, in a way. So, but it's not your case. So you are considered yourself venerable as a kitchen.
As a servant somehow, yes.
Servant.
But actually, also the task is it's actually the basic attitude. It's also what Venerable Gonzo Rinpoche said. I remember it was very, very clear about it, very direct, very good. He said you should not have the idea when you become a monk that now you're something very special and you kind of. Not at all. He said it's the point you have to serve others. Serve them, help them, try to be noble to them. That's the task.
You choose this way of becoming a monk.
Yes.
If you look now backwards,
Yes.
you choose 30 years, when you have 20 years old, for example, 30, you choose knowing what will mean to be a monk, or you have experienced in the way. So are there differences between looking now at your life and 30 years back?
Yes, there's really a difference. I can tell you, when I was young, when I studied in Vienna, on one side, I always might have had a strong wish to help others, you know. You find always people who need something, but I myself have been extremely confused also, extremely confused, and by being confused and then you try to help, that was always, it ended up in always in a kind of disaster. Always, you know, always. Even if you have the wish to help, but one is lacking the capacities and also oneself has I had also at the same time a lot of problems, I tell you, just with my, let's say, with parents and also at the university and then with the society and with many things. And then I remember was one of the masters was very, very clear. He said to me, if you really want to help others, first thing you have to learn is to help yourself. If you yourself are completely entangled with a lot of problems, you know, with relationships and this and that, but also very, not in a good manner, you know.
So to help yourself.
First step he said to me, you have really to learn that and to clean up a little bit your life and behaviors, and then slowly you can try according to your capacities help others or try to assist them in certain things or being open to them in that manner. Therefore, when I look back, sure, there's a difference between at that time and now being a monk. There's a difference, you know, but still, I would say not such a big difference, but some difference. Yes, yes. There should be more difference, you know, but this is, how to say, it's also related to my laziness and many other things, you know, that I didn't improve so much, but at least a little bit, and this is already a help, you know. It's a help for oneself and also for others, and through, thanks to those masters and the studies, sure, my relationships became also much better, you know, to others.
Do you consider that you have had a joyful life, a happy life? How can you consider your life?
Sure, I find it extremely privileged somehow, you know, because out kindness, sure, that how would you say, that one has been accepted by a master, that one really, that he opened the door to go to this place and have access to all those things of philosophy, the classes and everything, and so open, so generous from the side of the master. Extreme generosity, but also generosity from my parents, you know, they supported me, you know. This really I'm very so thankful. In that sense, I find myself, sure, very fortunate and extremely privileged, and sure, one should also should try to use the opportunity, because one does not know how long it will last, since the time of death is uncertain, you know. It's best thing just to use the opportunity as long as it's there, being very thankful, you know, to that Venerable Master, Gonzo Rinpoche, but also to my parents, that they have been open, they supported me even. In that sense, I find very, very fortunate. Really fortunate, very happy about it.
You are fluent in Tibetan language.
Not good. The young Romanian monks, they become good, you know. I'm not talented with languages, I tell you, honestly. But sure, we have to learn. We learn the Korakol language, and then the language for the scriptures, the literal Tibetan. But it's always so vast, this Tibetan thing. So it's a kind of, it's a long-term project for me also, Tibetan. You have to study the whole life. But I tell you honestly, I'm not talented with languages, not at all. But there is a great advantage of learning it. It's really extraordinary, the language, and also the scriptures and the precision and how things are presented. It's very, very, very extraordinary.
Yes, maybe it's a moment to salute Draghi Nicolai and Vlad Dojka, who were here. You mentioned the
Yes.
And that tonight you will conference to the Bucharest University
Yes.
about compassion,
compassion, love,
friendship,
yes,
love.
yes.
Yes, virtues that we
Yes, I will try to do it based on the Metta Sutra. I'm 5 minutes.
We are 5 minutes, yes.
I will try roughly to explain. Unfortunately, I didn't find a Tibetan version. It's now more based what I found was just a German translation from Pali. But I will try, you know. Sure, if I would have it in Tibetan, it would be easier because Tibetan is extremely accurate, you know, with these terms. In German and English, often there is not a kind of, they don't have a common base, you know, for these terms, you know, for this definienda, the definitions, like it exists in Tibetan. It's extremely clear, extreme clarity. You know. Yeah.
Extreme clarity.
Extreme clarity.
Yeah, I would like to ask you, Venerable, to conclude the program.
Yes.
Maybe with 2 or 3 minutes, with some useful words for the disciples, the students, the people that are looking to everything that you think can help them in order to see what they are. And thank you again for this direct exercise of modesty, authenticity and love.
Most welcome. Most welcome. I can just say I appreciate that, as I said in the beginning, your openness. And also, how to say, I don't take these things for granted, you know, somebody living here in Bucharest, you know, being so open and also sharing things then at this university, this private university. That's, I think it's very rare to find, somehow unique, you know. I can just rejoice about that, about that fact. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you're
Thank
welcome,
you.
most welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.
You're welcome.